Universe coming to you this afternoon with a little bit of a different look than usual. We're not doing BBM today. We're breaking up the BBM drafts, doing a best bowl mania college football draft today. And I know nothing about college football. I don't historically watch college football. I actually think I might get into it this year. I think this is the year that maybe I start watching a little bit more college football as I'm getting more into season long stuff. But also because we have this best bowl mania, I'm going to be doing some of these drafts. But I'm excited to be here today with Josh Chevalier, who is a college football expert, so he can be our guide through these college football best ball streets. Josh, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. You nailed my last name. That's one of the first. So,
I just
you know,
knew it. Yeah, just off the top of
yeah,
my head, I knew it.
high
I,
regard for that.
I obviously asked Josh before the show how to pronounce his last name because there were so many different ways you could pronounce Chevalier, Chevalier. Obviously, is one.
We
Cheval. I mean, there's just so many ways. So I'm glad that I asked.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, man, it's fun. I feel like a lot of people are getting into college football for the first time, especially with
Well, there's
the
the new
video
game
game
out.
coming
Yeah,
out. Yeah, it's like just brought a whole like I had people coming up to me yesterday just randomly that I know, like good friends, but like
yeah.
our small talk was, dude, I can't get any sleep because I'm playing the game and I'm playing with James Madison, and I'm like, oh,
Big week
music to
for
my
you.
ears.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
week for you having the game come out, the college best ball for the first time. Yeah, big week for you. Yeah, I mean, even best ball in general. I've had some in real life friends that I've been like trying for years who are super into fantasy football. They listen to like the footballers like daily, like they're obsessed with fantasy football. I've been trying to get them into best ball for years, and they're just like not interested. Finally, this year it's clicking for some of them. They're getting into it. So I think
That's
things
awesome.
are picking up all across the board. Are you a best ball guy in general? Like, have you done a lot of NFL best ball?
So I've done a lot of college best ball over the
Oh,
years. So, over the last couple of years, I mean, there's not a lot of college best balls to begin with, but
yeah.
I've probably participated in 80, 90% of them that are out there. So 100 plus best ball. So this is the main format that I'll do in the off season to really get ready for the season, like you would in the NFL, I think.
My understanding is that most college best ball historically have been slow drafts. Is that your experience?
Yeah, totally. Slow drafts, and it's all FBS teams. So it's all 134 teams that we draft with.
All 134. And this is not. This is only like 64 teams, something like that. Who are the teams that are involved in the tournament that we're going to be drafting for today?
So I believe there's 68 teams,
68.
and it's all Power 4, and then Washington State and Oregon State, I think they got lumped in, although I think most people are leaving them out in the general conference landscape of things. But
Okay.
they are included on this best ball slate.
I have to admit, I am so like out of the college football realm that I don't even
Yeah.
know like who the conferences are. Like people talk about, oh, these Big 12 schools. I don't even know who the Big 12 schools are. Like, and yeah, so you'll definitely be the guide here today. But to give people like a general idea of the contest, actually, I'll pull the contest up here so we can talk
Yeah.
about it more generally. I've got it on my screen here. Also, Dan, your fellow fantasy points guy, Dan Brown. Good to
Oh, I
see you
love
here,
it.
Dan. Tyler, good to see you as well. Thank you guys for showing up, hanging out with us. All right, so we're getting into Best Bowl Mania is what we're going to be drafting today. It's 20,000 the first, $10 entry, 11,300 entries total in the contest. I'm not joining just yet, guys. I'm just showing you the contest. Um, this is maybe I have my screen. Let me move this a little bit smaller because yeah, there we go. All right. It's already 51. I was actually worried. We initially were planning on doing this last Thursday. I was worried. It started out filling so fast. I was like, this might fill before we have this scheduled for Thursday.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear, glad to see that it slowed down a little bit, but still well on pace to fill pretty quickly. So this is going to be 30-second draft. It is 20 rounds. This is a super flex draft, which is kind of interesting. And we'll talk about some of the differences between NFL because a lot of people who are watching this who are like me don't have the experience. I've maybe played NFL Superflex, so I have an idea of how to play that. But you can see here, so the round one is weeks 1 through 11. So the first week of the playoffs here is week 12, which that is unique. That is so different from NFL because that is a bye week. Like there are going to be teams on bye in the
Yep.
playoffs. Is that just week 12, Josh?
So there's week 12, there's 18 teams on buys, and then I think there's two, Washington and Oregon, that have week 13. But
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And I should give a shout to Josh sent me his spreadsheet here, which we are going to be, referencing as we do our draft with all of the bye weeks. And you can find this in the Fantasy Points Discord. You can also find Josh's rankings in the Fantasy Points Discord. The Discord isn't free. You have to be signed up for the products. But again, you can get 15% off any Fantasy Points product using promo code Orfield24 if you want to get in, check out this stuff, because very, very useful resource to have here. All of the bye weeks for all of the teams, see who the teams are playing in the playoffs. Very useful reference sheet here. And then, of course, also the rankings, which I have uploaded the Fantasy Points rankings for this as well, which we'll go through the rankings as well. But so getting back to the Underdog sheet, anything else that's unique about this? So it's super flex. So you can see the format here. It's 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 super flex, 1 quarterback flex, bench 12. It's pretty standard. Oh, there's tight ends in this too. I did not realize this. That's actually, I think, different from. I don't remember if that's different. I've done so many different formats. I feel like the NFL Superflex, it was tight end / wide receiver, but that maybe I'm wrong about that. Anything else that's unique about this format?
No, I mean, for us, drafting from where I'm coming from, usually we have 3 wide receivers. So this is a little unique in that there's 2 in this format. Makes it in its half PPR as well instead of full PPR. So I feel like maybe wide receivers are a little bit not devalue compared to what I'm used to as far as full PPR and 3 wide receivers. So that's the big one. But yeah, Superflex is pretty standard because when you're drafting 68 teams, there's a lot of quarterbacks to choose from.
Yep. Okay. So it's 68 teams, and so that also changes the dynamics of drafting a little bit. So like in NFL Superflex contests, like the first 6 picks are usually going to be quarterbacks or something like that, and then it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, and then another quarterback, and it's just like you're going to get 9 quarterbacks taken in the first round, 15 through 2 rounds. That doesn't appear to be the case. Just looking at both ADP and your rankings, it doesn't appear that quarterbacks are quite as necessary to take early. Is that just because there are so many available? Like, it's a little bit different from NFL in that the NFL, there are only 32 teams, so like only 32 possible starting quarterbacks, and some of them it's like, well, do I want Russell Wilson or do I want Justin Fields? Like little bit of uncertainty in those 32 teams. Is it a little bit different because we have 68 or however many teams there are in this?
Yeah, I think there's the top 8 QBs that go in the first 2 to 3 rounds, and then people wait a little bit. But I'll say this: you need 3 or 4 QBs at the end of round 10 because it drops off pretty significantly at that point. And so people are, I think going at least 3 in the first 10 rounds in these drafts. Different drafters have different strategies here, but that's usually what we're seeing. But yeah, there's so much talent at the skill position, and there's so many teams that I think it's a little bit different than your traditional NFL best ball. You're going to see so many go in the first 2 rounds.
Interesting. Yeah, I've always been a big proponent in NFL Superflex best ball of taking quarterbacks early, just because they project so much better than every other position. So you're going to want, and you typically you're going to want a quarterback in both, obviously in the quarterback slot, but you're typically going to want your quarterback in that Superflex spot. So you're hopefully going to have 2 quarterbacks hitting your lineup, every single week. So having 3 or 4 options is generally a good thing here. When you say there's a drop off after round 10 or so, do you have any idea like how many quarterbacks typically are taken there, and why is there a drop off? Is it just like, is there such a disparity in talent in college football that just like even the starting quarterback is like you just, they're not going to score nearly as many fantasy points as the better teams? Or what is your reasoning, do you think, for the drop off there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you start to get into more QB battles at that point, things that are uncertain at the college level. And so you have about 30, I'll say 30 to 40 that go in the first 10 rounds. I mean, so quite a bit, right? And so there's 68 teams, there's only 28 starting QBs left. And just like in the NFL, I'm sure I don't play a ton of NFL, to be honest, but like, Scott Barrett, I think maybe it was Rich Rebar that coined this term, the Konami code quarterback, the dual threat quarterback.
Scott says it, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And he, like, that is king in college fantasy football. And so those guys after round 10 are also, fewer and far between in this format as well. So, but yeah, it's like, man, the guys that you can get early on can smash. I will say this as we get into it, a lot of the early round quarterbacks have week 12 buys. And so do have to, that's why you have to come back around by round 10 and get those guys that you're going to start to fill in And so you'll see rounds 12 through 4 or weeks 12 through 14 begin to really play a factor in who you're choosing later on, particularly if you go, like a Jackson Dart, who's like a top 2 QB in this format. He's got a week 12 bye, and then Dylan Gabriel, the top QB, has a week 13 bye. So both of
Oh
them
man.
have playoff buys, and they are the ones that are the first 2 picks. So, and that's just the beginning of the trouble that we have with these top QBs. But it doesn't really get much better as you go along because there's so many week 12 buys.
That is really interesting, having the two top quarterbacks with playoff buys. You kind of wonder, like, if you can get them to the final, is that going to be just like extra Konami code, where it's just like not many people are going to have them, and they're going to be just smashing. That is pretty fun. As far as stacking goes, so I in NFL best ball, I'm always trying to stack. Like, I'm a big proponent of stacking. It's different having 68 teams or however many versus 32. Is it, do you prioritize it more? Do you prioritize it less? Like, how do you approach stacking in this contest?
Yeah, I do think I would prioritize it a little bit more in this format because you have those weeks 12 through 14 that are the tournament. And so you're just trying to maximize points during that time. But I think it depends on whether you're drafting a team, you know, if it's not a dual threat quarterback, then you've almost has to stack.
Yeah.
So this guy's a dual threat, but for example, a Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, who's kind of got both, but he's a very good passer. Like, you want to try to get Deion Burks or Nick Anderson, who are the top 2 projected wide receivers there, to stack with them because they're going to be so valuable in the weeks that they hit.
And is that difficult to do, like, by ADP? Like, are these guys you have to get in early? I mean, we'll take a look, I guess, as we're drafting at where players are actually going. But are you typically able to get the stacks that you want to get?
Yeah, for those guys, certainly, because they're worth it too. I mean, because
Okay.
they're going to be so high scoring. I mean, they're in very elite offenses. But I will say, week 12 buys. Jackson Arnold's got a week 12 buy. So all these things we're factoring in. If we take week 12 buys early, then some of the values that we find late might be a little bit different.
Okay. And what about game stacking? Is that a priority for you? Do you try to get like the full on game stack for week 14? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so I've been doing these all week, and I would say as I've been going along, I've been doing more of the game stack theory
Okay.
of like trying to figure it out. So that's not something that early on I was like, okay, it's kind of basic best ball stuff, right? But as we're getting more into this, like, all right, like you have this game that could be a potentially high scoring game, like Colorado plays Oklahoma State, in week 14. Well, like, there is some potential there if you can get, you know, the big players in that game for sure.
And then finally, we're going to jump into a draft in a minute here, but just one final, like, thinking through the playoff weeks. Are there any teams that you especially like because of their playoff matchups, or any teams that you particularly are fading because you don't like the matchups in the playoffs?
Yeah, not honestly. Well, let me see. There is one team that has been messing with me a little bit. So Tennessee, who I love their players naturally, but they got Georgia in week 12, which is basically a bye week. So I kind of treat it that way. I mean, because you're not going to get the same. But then they come back with UTEP and Vanderbilt. So but I would say there's players that I'm targeting more than teams.
Okay.
Um, and particularly at the QB position, because I think it's where you're most impacted by the week 12 buys. So yeah, there's some players that we'll get into here as we're drafting that
Yeah.
I think, they're probably not going to be viable for 10 weeks out of the year, but they have that week 12 matchup that can get you through if you have a quarterback in week 12 that's going to be one of your main studs, but not going to play in week
And
12.
and teams have 2 bye weeks here. So it's also
Yes.
different from the NFL in that these teams each have 2. It looks like SMU has 3 bye weeks. Most teams have 2
Yep.
bye weeks. So that's kind of interesting. Um, why do you say, is Georgia just so much better than Tennessee that it becomes a bye week, or what do you mean by that being a bye
Yeah,
week?
I mean, Georgia just so good
Okay.
that they're one of the few teams that you're like, man, they're like Michigan. You don't want to, you don't like you essentially count those weeks as they're going to drastically change what's going to happen in the game. That happens a lot at college, right? Because college, you have a few teams that are matchup proof. They can go up against anybody, the Ohio States of the world, the Georgias. But man, the athletes and the talent matter at this level as much as scheme. So that can really affect the team like Tennessee playing Georgia potentially.
Okay.
I will say one more thing. It's this year in particular. So every like fourth year, there's 2 bye weeks for every team in college football, and then they go back to 1 bye week on most years. But it has to do with the way that dates fall. I'm not really sure how it all works. I'm
Okay.
not that smart, but I just know every 3 or 4 years we celebrate because we have an extra week of college fantasy football.
And this year, so we have an extra week added on to the season, and that's
Yep.
why we have the extra bye.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, that's fun. All right, we are going to jump into a draft, and then I will say hello to chat. So if you want to jump in, I don't think these fill particularly quickly. So hopefully people will have the opportunity to jump in with us. Where was it? I thought I had it up here. Losing my mind. Did I miss
Should
it?
be.
I think I missed it. Here, wait,
Yeah,
I can
maybe.
click up here. I can click it up here.
There you go.
There we go.
It's the only one there right now.
Yep. All right. Oh, plenty of spots left. So if people want to draft with us, jump in. Good to see you all here. Josh showing up. Good to see you, Josh Gillum. Been a minute. Chris, yeah, please do smash the like if you enjoyed the video, and bang the bell if you want to get notifications when I go live or when I have new content. I actually just put out a pre-recorded video today, so starting some of that stuff. So hit that notification button if you want to get alerts. What do you think of this? I would go after the strong team players that play in the weaker divisions. Would you agree with that, Josh, in general? And we're using your ranking, so we'll see to what extent you agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's a good strategy, especially if we're getting into this. Like Big 12 teams, like they're going to play weaker defenses. ACC, the same thing. Big 10, like Big 10 running backs can be very good, but then you have these weeks, these murderer rows, where like a Darius Taylor, who we're pretty high on in our rankings, like man, he's got a tough 3 or 4 week stretch where he plays a lot of tough defenses. So those things definitely factor into it to an extent for sure.
Okay. Justin Steele in the chat. Good to see you, Justin. MLB All-Star Justin Steele. Also, I believe a big college football fan. I don't remember. I think Justin went to one of the like big college football schools. I forget which one of it is, but good to see you, Justin. I'm sure you know more about this than I do. Best Ball on Call says Neil asking all the right questions. I'm probably not. I'm probably not asking all the questions that I need to. So if there are any questions that you guys have that I am not asking, go ahead and ask them. You can throw questions at Josh as well. We can answer any other questions you have, because I'm sure I'm going to miss some things. This is pretty impromptu, pretty off the cuff. I had a few questions in mind that I'm just thinking through as I'm drafting this. I'm going to want to think this, but I'm sure there will be questions that like, if I don't ask them, I'm going to come back tomorrow and be like, oh man, I'm really curious about this. Why didn't I ask this question? So if any of you have questions, throw them at us as well. This one is filling pretty damn slowly. We were at 3, we got up to 4 filled for a while, and then somebody left. So apparently not a lot of people drafting in the college football streets right now during the afternoon. If you guys want to draft with us, get in here. Let us get a draft in. I'm not used to to waiting this long in NFL.
I know.
I do Best Ball Mania. It's just like, oh, fills immediately. Have you had this experience?
Yeah, honestly, not this low number of people, but yeah, even at I'll draft 10, 11 at night before I go to bed. Just hit in a draft real quick, and it'll take 10 or 15 minutes to fill at that time of night. But we're going in and out here, right? People coming in and then hopping out. They see you in there, Neil, and they're like, man, I got to get out of here.
I don't think you can see it on Underdog. I mean, unless you're watching the stream. Yeah. I don't think people are afraid of me in the college football streets. I'm the fish here. If you were not with me, at least I would be the fish. With you here, maybe I can draft a good team. But I'm definitely the fish in general in college football drafting. We just got up and down again. I guess in the meantime, we can take a look at. So we did upload your rankings here, so we can take a look at where you differ pretty significantly from ADP. And I think you told me that you're planning on releasing an update pretty soon.
Yeah. So all of our QBs, because a lot of this was based off of best balls that we've been doing with other kind of industry guys over the off season. And so QBs have been going a lot lower with us and our friends. But here, I mean, there's 10 that are going in the first 2-3 rounds here. So our rankings kind of reflect kind of the previous stuff. So we're going to update those in the next week and make sure the QBs are all pushed up to reflect that. But everything else is pretty much in the order that we would have them in, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you'd push up quarterbacks, but the running backs, wide receivers, probably still in the order that you would want them to be in.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can see here, you had some pretty wild discrepancies as I was trying to do it earlier. There were some where it was like pretty far off. I mean, you can see Phil
Yep.
Moffitt here. You have him ranked 6, ADP 13.6. Like that is, you don't see
Yep.
that kind of discrepancy generally in NFL best ball. What do you like
Yeah.
about Phil Moffitt?
Yeah, so Phil, I mean, he Phil's a guy that split carries last year with Will Shipley at Clemson, and
Yep.
but there's a couple weeks that Will got hurt, and man, Phil Moffitt went off on like Notre Dame and a couple other schools that when he got the opportunity, and there's nobody behind him, right? And so just like NFL, like volume is king. And so Phil Moffitt's going to get the volume there at Clemson. They have a pretty easy schedule overall. And so he's just a guy that we really love this year. And we typically have been able to, you'll see here, ADP is probably right on him and getting him on the turn in one of these drafts. And that's the thing, like you have 3 or 4, 5 QBs that'll go before him, and then it'll push him around that range that you'll see here.
Oh, I see. So you think that after you push up quarterbacks, your ranking is going to be closer to where ADP is on Phil Moffitt once
Yeah.
you push
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel up and whoever else. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
Um,
because you got like you have him and Jackson Dart going early. You got Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee that'll go early. Jalen Milroe. These are all kind of first round quarterbacks. And I mean, in our ADP, I mean, these are guys that are even ranked, some of them in the 30s. Avery Johnson's another one, just because that's where they would go typically, a week ago before these drafts opened up. So we'll be adjusting those. But once you push all those up, you see some of these guys really fall into where they'll go. But essentially, like these drafts will start with Ollie Gordon will probably go number 1, if not Dylan Gabriel, and then you go Tetairoa McMillan, Luther Burden, right there behind them, and then you'll see Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Dart, if they haven't gone already. So
okay.
that's typically how these things are going to start that I've seen at least.
Let's take a look at individual positions for a minute. See if you are far off with any of the positions. So it looks like largely in line with ADP. I mean, you start off, Dylan Gabriel is your 101. I think he's the 101 as far as ADP goes as well. Jackson Dart is your second. You have Nico. I don't know how to pronounce this name. I'm not even going to try this one.
Yeah. Iamaleava.
Iamaleava. You have him
Mhm.
ranked as your third quarterback. Looks like he is behind Garrett Green, behind Jalen Milroe in terms of ADP.
Yeah.
Are you you want to be that much higher than the market on Nico?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you talk about a guy like Garrett Green, he's a guy that at the end of last year scored like 40 points in like 2 or 3 straight games. That is not where he was at most of the year. I was one of the highest guys on Garrett Green going into last year. He really came out of nowhere. So I know his game very well. He can run the ball. He cannot throw it very well at all.
Okay.
And so defenses figure that out, right? And even starting the year, he's gonna have a rough start. You got Penn State and Pittsburgh early on in the year. So Nico is in a system with a Josh Heupel. It's basically this veer and shoot. They're known for putting up explosive points. Garrett Green is in an offense that's not known for putting up explosive points. He basically runs that offense, so it could work out well, but also high volatility with a guy like that who could get injured. But Nico, on the other hand, this is a 5-star recruit. I mean, he's potentially the number 1 draft pick at QB, him or Arch Manning in 2 years. And he's surrounded by just a ton of talent on the offense with an elite offensive coordinator, one of the best offensive minds in Josh Heupel in college football. So this is a guy that Iowa is always one of the top defenses every year. And Nico played him in the bowl game as a true freshman and scored 30 fantasy points because he had 3 touchdowns on the ground. And it's like, man, when you get that combined with a guy that can, on another weekend, throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, you start to really be able to cook on either the ground or in the air,
right?
Because of a guy like Nico.
Okay, now we need, because Nico I'm seeing is Tennessee, and I believe Tennessee is the one that you said you have concerns about. Week 12, he's at Georgia, which you say is like a bye week.
Mm-hmm.
Are they gonna, when you say that, like, are they going to potentially like sit him for the entire game, or do you mean like he's probably
No,
going to play half the game? Like, how do
I mean,
college
he'll
football teams
play.
typically like handle these situations? He'll play. He just
No,
won't put up
yeah.
bonus points because the defense is too good, or what? What's
Yeah,
the
and he'll probably still put up like a guy like Nico still put up like 20 or 25 points, but
okay?
in a game like where they're gonna average 35 to 40 points per game, the offense will, and
Mhm.
that game they'll be lucky to score, 21, 24 points.
Okay.
So it just reduces the amount. Like so, at Dylan Sampson, who's the running back there, you'll see him go in the top 10 rounds. Like kind of guys like that. You just want to be aware that like Georgia's coming week 12. Um, so yeah, so it's not just he's not going to score the same amount of points he is every other week. There's a ceiling.
Okay. Gotcha. Um, I guess the other we should just look quickly here. I mean, you have
Mhm.
Jackson Arnold ranked ahead of Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe's ADP 5.3, Jackson Arnold 29.7. So you are pretty far off from ADP there. What is
Yep.
your reasoning for liking Jackson Arnold better than Jalen Milroe?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is that Jackson Arnold's just probably a better quarterback than
Okay.
Jalen Milroe. Like I think people see that Jalen Milroe is going to be with Kalen DeBoer. He's an elite athlete. There's a lot to like there, but man, it's potentially his wide receiver two in that offense is a true freshman that is only 17 years old because he came into college football early. So there's not a lot of like skill at the wide receiver position. It's not a deep position there. And Jalen Milroe is not an elite passer whatsoever. And that's what Kalen DeBoer's system's built on. I mean, Michael Penix, who's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, was an elite passer. But didn't run very much. And that's what Kalen DeBoer really wants to do. He can function with dual threats. And so I'm betting more here on the talent of Jackson Arnold and the system at Oklahoma than Jalen Milroe. He's just not a guy that I would probably take that early. I will say this, the bye weeks for uh Jalen Milroe make him a little bit more because he doesn't have a playoff bye, do
Okay.
make him a little bit more attractive. Um, but I would still take Jackson Arnold, I think, over him.
Do
And he
you,
goes quite a bit lower.
as you are adjusting your rankings, because I know you're putting out a new rankings next week, is that going to affect like now you've had more experience doing these drafts, you're going to get an idea of like, okay, I really I need to prioritize players who don't have those playoff bye weeks. Like, is that something that is going to affect your rankings, like knowing where the buys are?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
To a certain extent, it's so hard, right? Because again, like I'm now creating strategies around week 12 buys that don't require you to go up and get a player or necessarily knock a player like a Jackson Arnold
Okay.
completely. Um, but Jackson Arnold is a good value overall in these drafts. I think his ADP, can't read it right there. Is it say 29?
Yeah, 29.7.
Yeah, so you're talking about middle of the third round for him. And I would go up as early as the second round to get him, but he's a guy that he can put up some explosive weeks for sure.
Okay. Let's take a look at running back now, see if there's any big differences. Looks like you are, early on pretty in line with ADP. Ollie Gordon first, Omarion Hampton, DJ Giddens. Looks like you have Devin Neal ranked a little bit lower than everybody else. I mean, no crazy stands here with
Yeah.
Moffitt and Ott. Like those are both second rounders, so you have ahead of Neal, but a little bit of a difference there. Anything standing out to you there? Any
Yeah.
big reasoning?
I would say Neil's actually he will move up for me. I mean, the
Okay.
schedule for Kansas is just so nice. And you look at the schedule in the playoffs too. It's BYU, Colorado, Baylor, who are are three very soft teams. And so guys like that and Jalen Daniels that we'll talk about, like they're all moving up
Okay.
in our rankings for sure. And guys that we probably want to target them if we can get them for sure.
Nice. Okay. We are still waiting on two more in this draft. If anybody wants to get in, you have time. Um, there were some, and I don't remember what the positions. I'm just going to scroll down real quick and see if anybody
Yeah.
jumps off the page. And I mean, Nate Noel, you have ranked
Yes.
58th overall. His ADP is 177.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one.
So last year you had Cody Schrader, who is the RB1 there. I mean, he was awesome for what he was, like a D2 running back that comes up the SEC and does really well. And so Missouri brought in two running backs in the offseason, Nate Noel, who's a smaller guy from Appalachian State, and then they brought in a kid named Marcus Carroll, who's about 210 from Georgia State. And quite frankly, Nate Noel is just a better running back than Marcus Carroll. I mean, Marcus Carroll put up good stats, but that's in an offense, Georgia State, that produces like top 5 offensive lines every year. And Marcus Carroll's like a 5th-year senior last year doing that. I mean, he's I was on him last year. I mean, I liked him a lot because he was great value, but Nate Noel is a guy that I think has eclipsed 800 yards rushing a few times in his career. I mean, he's very talented. He is smaller. Missouri doesn't like to split carries. I mean, they have in the past, but that's not something they did it 2 years ago. But Eli Drinkwitz, the OC there, or the head coach, is just known for giving volume to his top running back.
Okay.
And Phil Steele, who, he's a famous college football writer and has his magazine, he talks to the head coaches every year and he puts together a depth chart, and he has Nate Noel as the RB1. And I will say, coming out of spring camp, I also was reading reports where he was the RB1 as well, above Marcus Carroll. And so some of it's just like, I just think people are off. I mean, there's a couple backfields here, Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss for Texas A&M. People are off there too. I think they just see production, or they see stars, but they're not reading camp reports, or Phil Steele, who's like talking to the coaches. You don't get a lot of information in college football. That's one of the downsides.
Yeah.
And so when a guy talks to a head coach, I listen to like what he has to say. And Phil Steele's been on in his depth charts. So, but I was already on Nate Noel, and then Phil Steele confirmed it, and so I'm sticking with it for now.
Confirming your priors. Love that when your priors are confirmed. I love that, taking a big stand on the player. As a spring football fan, I know the feeling of just like not getting the report, and it's very different from the NFL, basically any other level, just where you don't have the strong reporting across the board. So when you can get it, that's definitely valuable. All right, let's take a look at some wide receivers. We got one more left to get into this draft. Wide receiver looks like, again, top of the board. You're pretty consistent with ADP. You got McMillan first, Burden the third, second, and then you have Evan Stewart as your third ranked wide receiver ahead of Tez Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both going at the 1-2 turn. Not a huge discrepancy there, but they're both Oregon. That's interesting. So you actually like one Oregon receiver better than the market does.
Yeah, and this is where, honestly, most of the college fantasy football industry has been on Evan Stewart over Tez Johnson all offseason, and they'll flip-flop, though. I mean, they will. And so I think just the market has decided that Tez Johnson, who produced in that system last year, 1,000-yard receiver. Evan Stewart, though, 5-star, 10.5, 800-meter outside wide receiver. I mean, he's potentially the wide receiver one in the next draft.
Okay.
If he puts together an elite year. I mean, this isn't, the wide receiver they had last year, Troy Franklin, who's like talented, but a 3rd-round pick. That's not Evan Stewart. If Evan Stewart has a year that Troy Franklin had at the same position, the outside wide receiver in that offense, which that offense is routinely since UTSA with Will Stein there, the offensive coordinator, has produced elite production on the outside wide receiver one, then Evan Stewart's going to be a massive buy in NFL circles, and I'm betting on that talent.
Nice. Looks like we just filled, so we're about
there we
to
go
find out
where we drafted.
We have we got the 2-hole. We get the 2-hole. Influencer 102. Some names that I recognize in here. I think I'm not going to know all of them in the college football series. PSU fan, definitely a name that I know. Wakey in here. So some of the familiar names. I'm not sure if I know if anybody else is drafting with us and you are watching the stream, listening to us. Let me know. Let us know if you are in the draft with us. But with the 102, we can wait. We can make our decision after the 101 goes. But I want you to know you're making this pick. I'm not making this pick. You're gonna make it for me. So you can start thinking about who are your top 2.
Yeah. Did you say Wakey's in this draft?
Wakey is in this draft. Yep.
So routinely, I've drafted this guy quite a bit in these drafts, and he'll take 3 QBs in the first 4 rounds. So this is a guy that he may tip the scale on how people are drafting here. I'll say, I think if Dylan Gabriel doesn't go number 1, then we go Dylan Gabriel. If not, let's go Ollie Gordon.
Okay.
I think stick around ADP But where we're sitting, if we don't get a QB here, we're probably going to be
All right,
scraping
so
the
so
bottom of the barrel.
you wanna go your 10th ranked player. We're gonna take him first overall, and this is because you know the room, because you know Wiki Wiki is probably taking 2 quarterbacks at that
Yeah.
turn. So you wanna get a quarterback early, so you're not forced to later.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got some experienced players in here. I mean, I noticed some of these names too, and I think they'll go QB. So, and this gives us some
The
flexibility on our next turn as well and who we take.
one potential downside to taking Dylan Gabriel there is, I mean, just looking at the wide receiver rankings, Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson both might be gone by the time we pick next. Is that a
Yeah.
concern? Are there any other Oregon players we can stack up with Dylan Gabriel?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, as far as wide receivers, there's a few that you could stack later on. I'd probably stay away from it. Those are the two guys they like to funnel target to two players in offense.
Okay.
So yeah, it is unfortunate. When you can stack, it's nice to do it here, but in college football, there's so many wide receivers and skill position players that it's not a necessity.
So this one is kind of an exception to your general rule that you are always trying to stack, but when it's like you're not going to reach for a wide receiver who's just not very good to get a stack.
Yeah,
If I mean, and here it kind of works out that like because both of his stacking partners goes so early, it's like, well, you just can't match that. It's I don't know, you don't have the option to get the stack, but nobody else does either. So if Dylan
yeah,
Gabriel's the guy you need, like you're not going to be facing people in the playoffs who have Dylan Gabriel stacked up with his good wide receivers, because it's just not generally going to be an option.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And who knows? Like maybe people here decide to fade Evan Stewart because they can't stack him with Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see. I've seen Evan Stewart fall quite a bit, but
Okay.
yeah, we'll
Oh,
see.
so Wakey goes Nico, and then he goes Phil Maffa second.
Yeah, he
So
must
did
be
not get
listening.
that. Yeah, yeah, right. Could
Yeah.
be. Um,
Um,
yeah, we are getting a lot of quarterbacks off the board though. The 12 hole goes back to back quarterbacks.
yeah,
Evan
I did.
Stewart goes.
Yeah, there you go. I did like that Avery Johnson Jackson's dart stack. I mean, Avery Johnson's a guy. He might be the QB1 in all of college fantasy football this year.
Oh
He is
wow.
that dynamic as a runner. Um, he's probably the best. He's like I mean, just imagine Lamar uh, Jackson when he was in college, and that's the type of ceiling that an Avery Johnson has
Wow.
as far as a runner. Like he's elite.
Okay. Is he going to be in the NFL draft this year?
No, he's got a couple years,
Okay.
and we'll see. We'll see if he can develop as a passer. Jackson Dart, another one that he should get three to 500 yards rushing, 6 or 7 touchdowns, and then pretty dynamic offense he's in as well.
I'm going to before our next pick. I'm just going to look
Yeah, do
quickly
it.
at your sheet here. So weeks 4 and 13. So we do have a bye in the playoffs here with Oregon, but they face Wisconsin and Washington in the playoffs. Okay, that's just good to know.
Yeah.
Good to have that in our back pocket. Let know that we're gonna have to work around that week 13 bye.
Yeah. Yeah, and luckily there's a lot of teams that do play that week, so we can even look at some matchups. I haven't had the pleasure of drafting this early very often, so I haven't gotten much of Dylan Gabriel, to be honest.
Okay,
Um,
good to get a share here. Bummer that we didn't get the falling Stewart, but
yeah.
all right. Who do we like at this turn? And I can sort by ADP too if that's easier for you.
Yeah, let's do ADP. I mean, some of this is
So
again,
this
if we have
is by
guys that are
ADP.
values. Mm-hmm.
And you can see these two quarterbacks are way lower in your ranks, but as you said, you're going to push them up. Anybody you
Yeah.
particularly like here?
We can go Trey Harris here,
Okay.
who's right there. And then
That.
we can see if we can come around with Jackson Arnold could be there
Yep.
at this next spot. Grab him. He's got the week 12 bye as we discussed, but a little less worried about that with Dylan Gabriel being able to play week 12.
Right. So you're offsetting the bye weeks with those two.
Yep. So yeah, Kyron Jones here is a guy that I would love to be able to pick. Or no, sorry, Jackson Arnold. If not, then I would go Kyron Jones. He's another guy that can put up pretty massive weeks.
Okay.
But I like going the what we've done here. I think going 2 wide receivers and 2 QBs in the first 4 rounds is really a strong strategy because we'll see the wide receivers are going to drop off very quickly, and to get an outside wide receiver like a Trey Harris, um, and in a half PPR format, like he's had several explosive weeks in DFS. I mean, he was potential winner from a
Okay.
DFS perspective. And but yeah, I mean, to get those type of guys, like wide receivers drop off significantly after rounds 5 or 6. You're starting to really like reach on guys, whereas running backs on the other hand are really starting, they're falling. There's more value. It's just a deeper position. So I
Mhm.
think there's guys that we can get in that range, um, that
It
are
it
that are still
are
really
we
good.
gonna have stacking options later for Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma?
So we might have one here in round 4.
Okay.
So Dion Burks and Nick Anderson, I would say rounds 4 through 7. I'm not sure what the ADP is on Nick Anderson, but I believe he goes kind of in that range. Um,
All right, Nick Anderson, 77. Wait, why is it?
and then Dion Burks is around 49. So you can see right in the range of where we're picking.
Yep, yep.
So we could do that, and then Nick Anderson a little bit lower. So Dion Burks is this slot. They tend to feature the slot a lot in that offense.
Okay.
Um, Nick Anderson, Nick Anderson's like an efficiency guy. He's like
Okay.
58 catches for 1,000 yards and like 10 touchdowns.
Nice.
So
What so this is super flex. And now I'm trying to remember. So it's one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers, tight end, and a super flex, and a
yep.
regular flex as well. What kind of construction are you trying to go for in general? Like what is your distribution of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end?
Yeah. I mean, so it'll vary, but usually 4 to 5 QBs, and then somewhere in the 6 to 7 running backs, and then 6 to 8 wide receivers, and then 2 to 3 tight ends, depending on which tight ends I'm able to get.
Okay. So if you're able to get good tight ends, you're good with ending with two. Otherwise, go for three.
Yeah. And some of this is like, it feels so risky to just have 2 tight ends and then one gets hurt. We're playing football,
Same as
but
NFL. Yeah.
yeah, but it's a risk, and I think you just got to do it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
another. There's no tight end that we can throw on to our Dylan Gabriel stack. No Oregon tight end you like?
So I will say Terrence Ferguson is a decent tight end, that we could look at later for sure.
Okay.
And I don't even know, his ADP's got to be pretty late. I mean, I would imagine around 14, 15. Again, I haven't had a ton of Dylan Gabriel, so I haven't stacked a ton of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, this is so Damian Martinez is one. I guess we're actually coming up pretty quick here. So
All
maybe
right.
I'll stop talking.
All right. We are. I mean, we could go Burks here. We'll be right at ADP if we want there, unless there is somebody that you really like around here.
I think any of these running backs are guys that we could probably just wait on until
Push it.
after the. Let's get Deion
Right.
Burks, and then
Because you like them all about. I mean, they're all ranked
yeah,
pretty similarly.
yeah.
The guy you
So
have ranked the highest is actually lower in ADP than the two behind him. So yeah.
yeah, and I mean another guy here too, Cam Ward. That's right there. He's a guy that you can get value on in these drafts as well. I mean, talking coming up to the round 5 here, and he's a guy that could easily be a top 10 QB this year. And so if we would have waited on Dylan, not taking, in hindsight, it's 2020, right? But you could wait for a guy like Cam Ward potentially to fall, but it's like now you're selecting on like 1 or 2 guys, and it's like
Right.
it's hard to depend on. But he's got a week 12 bye. That's the other thing. So if you had him and Arnold, who's a great stack for most weeks, then you have 2 week 12 bye quarterbacks.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to do that with Cam Ward, or do you want to go with one of these other running backs?
I don't mind. Let's go Cam Ward, and then
right.
we'll just come back.
I like it. Yeah, we're probably doing 5 quarterbacks anyway. If I remember, I mean that's.
And honestly, we could probably do probably 5 with 2 week 12 buys here. And there's some guys that, again, we can get later on. Like, but between these 3 quarterbacks, like we're not now we can really figure out where we want to go from here, because they're going to be viable every week. We're going to have, really high end numbers at the QB position.
Nice. I want to shout out the all-in bundle at Fantasy Points. Josh does work for Fantasy Points, so worth pointing out that you can get all of the data suite, which I love the Fantasy Points data suite, just the best on the market. I think best place for data, for NFL data. It is so good. You can get really in-depth data. You can get your very simple data. It is awesome. You can also get the NFL Premium package with all of the data points. Fantasy Points content, which is awesome content, and the college football package, which of course includes this buy sheet that we've been looking at with the playoff schedule, includes Josh's rankings. So all of that is included in the all-in bundle, and my understanding is that's $360. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that, Josh.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
And you can get
$360
is the normal price. You can get it for, again, 15% off using promo code Orfield24. So check that out. If you're planning on getting into the college football streets along with the NFL, check out the all-in package. Good bundle to have, because these rankings, I imagine, are going to be pretty valuable. I mean, seeing the discrepancies between where you have guys ranked versus the field, and you're obviously very experienced at this. You know what you're doing, so I think that it's going to be pretty valuable to have these rankings. So check it out if you have not already done so. And honestly, I think this spreadsheet is just as helpful, like, because otherwise it is a mess. Trying to work through these buys is a big mess.
Yeah. A sheet like this is a must for sure.
Yeah.
So
Cam Ward, MFL. What is MFL? Remind me.
Miami. Yep.
So he's got the week 7 and week 12. I haven't even been thinking about the earlier bye weeks. We were only talking about like the playoff bye weeks.
Yeah, that's
true. Is that something that you really focus on, or are you only really concerned about the playoff bye weeks as you're drafting?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And I think Oregon has a week 4 and week 13. Okay. Yeah. So, we don't have, none of these guys overlap the early bye week. I think it's like 4, 6, 7.
Okay. Good.
So we're pretty safe there. We had that one overlap. And again, I will say there's some quarterbacks like a Brock Vandegrift from Kentucky who will go much later, but they play Murray State week 12. And he's a great guy that we can get round 18 of this draft, or Peyton Thorne who plays ULM in that range. And, and then again, we just got Miami, other than having the week 12 bye, they play Wake Forest week 13. So now you just covered, Dylan Gabriel there.
That's a good matchup for Cam Ward.
Yeah. Okay. Wake Forest is not great defensively. Unfortunately, NIL transfer portal era has not been kind to them.
Okay. Are you a fan of a particular team?
I'm a Miami fan, so I am a little.
Miami, Florida. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So that was a bias pick we just made.
Totally.
All right. Cool.
I will say the stacking options for him are really good later on in the draft.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. We're round 6 right now.
Yeah, this is end of round 6, beginning of round 7 coming up.
So one of the guys I really love in this range is Nick Singleton. So if he's a guy that is there.
Do you like him better than Cowlin Lacey? You have Lacey as your top.
Yeah.
One? Okay.
Yeah, let's go with him and then see if we can come back around and get Colin Lacey. So we'll talk about Colin Lacey here as we're.
Okay. And we also have Nick Anderson here. If we wanted to double stack, are you trying to double stack generally, or are you good with just ending with?
Yeah, I think I'll just since we got Deion Burks.
Okay. You're good with just ending.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So Colin Lacey. So this is a position at Louisville. They're still trying to figure out who the wide receiver 1 is, but the wide receiver 1 for Louisville is one of the most valuable assets in college fantasy football. And so Colin Lacey's
you talked Slick Willie into it.
There you go.
Oh well.
So the beauty is that there's other options there.
Yeah.
But he's a slot receiver. So 6 out of the 8 past season, the top receiver for Louisville has been, for Jeff Brom, who's the head coach, has been an outside wide receiver. So Rondale Moore was the inside receiver, or the slot receiver twice. So Colin Lacey is a slot receiver.
All right, we're up. Back on the clock. We could go Nick Anderson still, or I mean, this is your rankings. This is ADP. So
yeah. So let's do. Let's go back. Let's go Kyle Williams. There from Washington State. He is a guy So he, again, another offense, air raid offense. They chuck the ball around a ton. And so he'll have a lot of high volume. So 100 plus targets is really what we want in college fantasy football.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he's a good option. And again, we'll see as we come around now that because we have 3 QBs, we'll have some nice options coming around on the 8-9 turn.
Okay.
So
With the quarterbacks that we have, or when you say we have nice options, you just mean like in general talent wise, or like stacking options, or what do you mean by that?
I just think like running back, wide receiver. So
Okay.
for Cam Ward, like to stack him, I wouldn't stack anymore with Oklahoma or Oregon unless it's the tight end,
Okay.
Terrence Ferguson. But Cam Ward is going to have some options here. They have 3 wide receivers that had over 800 yards receiving last year.
Wow.
And so you have Jacoby George's coming up, but my favorite Sam Brown, and his ADP is in the like 160s. So you can probably grab him like around 13, around 14. And you're going up a little bit on him, but NFL scouts think he's a day 3 wide receiver. He's a guy that's produced in this same system. So yeah, a cheaper stacking option, which I love. I love the cheaper stacking option versus trying to get him too early. I mean, Deion Burks is an exception because he's potentially an elite option. This is a kid that he had 5 catches for like 170 yards and 2
Wow.
touchdowns in the spring game.
Okay.
And showed a good connection with Jackson Arnold, and has shown talent before. He just hasn't had a quarterback to get him the ball.
Okay. And you think this is the year that he's going to have, and we got that quarterback obviously to get him the ball.
Yep.
It's funny. So we took the receiver that you have ranked worse of the stacking options. If I remember correctly, we went ahead and took Deion Burks instead of Nick Anderson. Whereas I think in your rankings, you actually have Nick Anderson higher. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Let me see. I don't
I might be
think.
misremembering.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I might have had him. So we do some combined rankings on our site.
Okay.
So we have one guy that loves Nick Anderson.
I see.
I'm not that guy.
Gotcha.
But,
So the rankings that we're using are not actually just your personal rankings; they are
yeah,
combined rankings. Okay, that's good to know.
yeah, they are combined with a few other guys. We haven't been able, because all this came out within like 2 days last week. We just
Yeah.
had to put up our combined. So I don't actually have just mine up here. But Deion Burks for me personally is higher than Nick Anderson.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah, I was wondering why you wanted to get Burks instead. I was like, it looks so like you'd think you want the other guy because he's ranked later, but
Yeah.
okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That's my fault.
Justin wants to know if we've taken McBride or Laporta yet. Sadly, we are 2 years too late to go the double bully tight end in college football. Justin loves doing the McBride Laporta bully tight end in NFL best ball on DraftKings.
Oh man.
Yeah, are there any tight ends that you just absolutely love in this format?
Yeah. So there's a guy, I think around round 10, around 11. So Luke Haas is a guy, Arkansas tight end, that I want to target in every draft I can. And I'm willing to go up on ADP to get him. He's a guy, he only played 5 weeks last year as a true freshman, and really 2 weeks where he was the guy, but averaged like 17 fantasy points, which for a tight end is unheard of in this format in college fantasy football. And he was like top 5 in every advanced metric. So I'm betting on his talent in the Arkansas offense this year. So
Okay. So somebody will maybe target in the next round. Now, I think you did say 4 quarterbacks through 10 rounds is generally the target. Is that right?
yeah, I think we can wait though
Because we got the first one with the second pick. We got Dylan Gabriel, so not quite as expected.
we have studs. So and passing quarterbacks too, they're not going to get injured more than likely.
Okay.
But this is around like, so we can go ADP here. Let's go Caleb Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go Caleb Jackson here.
Yep. So this is ADP, and he's not far off in terms of ADP.
Yeah,
looks good.
I just want to be able to scoop him up while we got a shot.
Yeah.
And there's another guy that so how many we have 2 running backs right now?
Yeah, we're at 3-2-3-0.
Yeah. So another guy here, let's go back to my rankings. So we'll go Jaden Blue here if we have a shot at him. It's right at ADP. And we're gonna talk a little bit about him. He's a Josh favorite for sure. He is
Nice.
one of my rankings here. So Jaden Blue is a guy that's going to be probably splitting carries with Cedric Baxter, but he is the Steve Sarkisian running back. So this is the guy, right? Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks. I think he's had like 10 straight years of 1,000-yard running backs, and he loves to feature one guy. It could be 2 running backs this year, and it could be CJ Baxter and Jaden Blue, but they split carries to end the year last year in the playoff run when Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL. And Jaden Blue actually averaged like 19 fantasy points per game, which is a pretty high mark, and on like 10 to 12 touches. And this is a kid that's just 207 pounds. He's the fastest returning wide receiver in college football. I think like 22.5 miles per hour.
You mean running back, right?
Yeah, sorry, running back.
Okay.
Did I say wide receiver?
Yeah.
So fastest returning running back in college football at 22.5 miles per hour, but he's gained 8 pounds. So he's up from 199 to 207. So he's a guy that I definitely think is like looking at this as his money year. CJ Baxter's a true sophomore, talented back, but I do think Jaden Blue is just too talented in a best ball format to not take a shot on, because this is a guy. If one of those, CJ Baxter had 2 different stints where he got hurt last year. And so when a guy's injury prone and you can get the second guy at a discount, I mean, he could be a league winner.
You said 19 fantasy points per game on 10 to 12 touches per game.
Yep.
That's insane. I mean, maybe that's more normal for college football but that's like Devin Achane kind of numbers.
Yeah. And I would say he's like similar. I mean, obviously he's not as fast as Achane, but similar type running back. He's just very explosive. Get him the ball in space and let him run.
Is it what are like the top fantasy point scores for like each position in college football? Like, is it drastically different from NFL in terms of like fantasy points per game, or is it kind of similar in like the averages?
Yeah, no, it's way higher.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking about like a good QB, like an elite QB is going to average you 35 fantasy points per game.
Wow.
A good QB, like a really good QB, like what we want, is a 30 point per game guy. And then average is 23 to 25.
Okay.
So you put up a lot more
significantly
points.
higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you definitely don't want to wait too long on your quarterbacks.
Yeah. And it's the same thing at the running backs. Like the good running backs are averaging 20 points a game.
Okay.
Right. Average is 14 points a game. So
more similar to NFL then. I mean, it's still a little bit higher, but like CMC, I think, was maybe over 20 fantasy points per game last year.
Yeah.
Or pretty close. Yeah.
So if your first round pick is not averaging over 20 fantasy points per game at running back this year, then you did not. That's a little bit of a bust. So
okay.
Yeah. All right. We are up in what, 1 pick?
We are. Caden Prescorn. That was not your tight end, right?
No, it was Luke Haas, and he just went. But
he went also. Okay.
Yeah, we might want to look at. So we have a couple different options here. So are we up? No, we're not up.
We're up. Yeah, okay. One more pick.
Okay. So Justin, who just went? Josh Meredith. So let's go ahead and go with Montreal Johnson. He's kind of at the top here.
Yep.
And he'll be the top Florida running back this year.
All right, so we're at 3-4-3.
Yeah.
This is we're at ADP right now. Here is your ranks.
So, yeah, I think we're gonna have to probably come here and get a tight end here.
Yeah. When you see a guy like this, like Nate Noel, where you're just so much higher on the market than him, do you save like running back slots for him? Like we have 4 running backs right now, but do you like pre-plan on just like, all right, I'm going to take him every draft, so I might as well just like save one of my running back spots for Nate Noel?
Well, I drafted so many of our subscribers that I don't get them very often.
You always get them?
Yeah. So I don't rely on that, but certainly, I mean, I don't see any of our guys in here right now, but
right.
Yeah, he's a guy that I would probably wait on. I mean, I do, again, it's risky because if he's not the guy, then, but
all right,
just never know. But I would say Justin Jolie And I'll tell you why not Mateer here in a minute.
Okay. Justin Jolie.
And so Mateer, the quarterback that was at the top there.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, I see him. Yeah.
So he's right around what ADP is, but like there's a good chance that he doesn't win that job.
Okay.
Phil Steele has Zevi Eckhouse higher than him. We like Zevi Eckhouse a lot. I will say Mateer is leading the race right now, but when a QB battle is that close, I think you need to handcuff in this format with Mateer and Eckhouse. So now you're using 2 roster spots.
Right.
And I don't think people have been doing it, but that's what I would do because I like Eckhouse better than Mateer, but Mateer, from all reports, was leading the QB battle. But I just don't even think people know that Eckhouse is a thing unless they're paying attention to college football pretty in depth.
So you always handcuff Mateer. Would you ever just throw on Eckhouse then at the end, like when you don't have Mateer, just because you think he's going to be the guy in the playoffs?
I think he's a guy that I would consider. There's other guys like that too, like a DJ Lagway from Florida, 5-star quarterback. Florida's got the potentially hardest schedule ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Billy Napier is like on the hot seat for his job, and so there's a world in which Graham Mertz, although he's good, like could get benched over the last 4 weeks of the year because they want to show what they got in DJ Lagway and don't want to lose him to the portal. And that he starts in the playoffs. And Florida's got a pretty decent schedule down the stretch where it's like LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. There's nothing there that like makes you super afraid as far as a defense. And they're just going to chuck the ball because it's DJ Lagway potentially. So that it's not a strategy that I've been super bold on yet to just take him alone.
Yeah.
But I've certainly played around with that. Same thing with 5-star freshman wide receivers late in drafts. I've done that a little bit too. So just because the upside can be so high with those guys at the end of the season.
So we're at 3-4-3-1 now. I'll read off our team and then we can think about planning ahead. So we're at Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, and Cam Ward at quarterback. At running back, we have Nicholas Singleton, Caleb Jackson, Jaden Blue, Montrell Johnson Jr. At wide receiver, Trey Harris, Deion Burks, Kyle Williams, and at tight end, Justin Jolie. So we are pretty balanced so far. 3-4-3-1. Remind me, I think you said you typically shoot for 5 quarterbacks, 6 to 8 receivers, 2 to 3 tight ends. 5 to 6 running backs? How many running backs?
Yeah, like I think 6 would be good. 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Particularly because it's half PPR. I think at the end it's just looking at who's available. At the wide receiver position, what value's there for sure.
Okay, so we can kind of play the value game toward the end.
Yeah, this is. I will say, like we are. What round are we in right now?
We are in the 12th round.
12th round. So around 14, 15, you start seeing people just take their guys.
Okay.
So ADP kind of gets thrown out the window a little bit. And so
should we think about doing that now since we do have guys that you are much higher on in the field?
Yeah, we could.
Or we can see. I'll show you who's available now.
Yeah. So I might take so Jordan Waters here is a guy that I wouldn't mind taking here, and then we just kind of save that last roster spot or the last running back spot for Nate Noel or any of these other running backs down here. I think we're up. Okay. Yeah, let's just go ahead and take Jordan Waters.
Okay.
And then let's start looking at some wide receivers here.
Do you know why he's projected for 0 fantasy points?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's a bad projection because
all right. He's
beat writers are
good.
Beat writers are saying unless there's something that's happened in the last day where he got injured without training camp, that'd be weird.
Yeah.
But the beat writers over at NC State think he's gonna be a workhorse. Get 18 to 20 carries per game. So
all right, this is ADP.
Okay.
Here's your ranks.
Yeah, so this is the range here. We can go back to my ranks. So Samuel Brown from Miami, I would stack here.
Oh yeah, good call.
And then Jordan Hudson from SMU. He's got 3 bye weeks, but he's probably the wide receiver 1 in a very good offense.
So who should we go Brown first? Do you want to go Hudson first and push Brown? Okay.
I think yeah, either one. I think
right.
Brown because we're stacking them.
Yeah, I like getting the stack out of the way. It makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so we're in round 13. We just finished round 13. Feeling pretty good. So we are at 3, 5, 4, 1. So we gotta start hammering wide receivers. Get probably 1 to 2 more tight ends. Maybe one. You think we're gonna go 5 quarterbacks here?
I think so because of the 2 bye weeks in week 12.
Oh yeah,
we need to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think one of those QBs needs to be Peyton Thorne from Auburn or Brock Vandegrift from Kentucky because they have the week 12 game against a very low tier opponent. So those are 2 guys that I would want, and then the other one I think we just pick best available QB, which it's slim pickings. It does get to be hard down here, but we picked all guys that are primarily going to be pocket passers. They're going to throw for 3,500 yards to 4,000 yards.
So and we should be good. We just basically need to cover those bye weeks. Like the 3 that we have, we took 3 good enough quarterbacks that like they're going to cover most of the season, and then we just need another quarterback, another couple quarterbacks to cover those bye weeks essentially. Okay.
Yep. And again, I think we probably could have gone the strategy of like if we only wanted to go 4 QBs, we pick up a Jalen Daniels in the first 10 rounds type deal. But just a little risky. If there's one injury, then you're cooked in week 12.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Chokehold, I skipped over this comment. Orfield for president. I want to be very clear. I don't want it. No, thank you. That seems stressful.
Not in this landscape.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Even more stressful. Terrence Ferguson goes. So that was the tight end that we were thinking about potentially stacking up later on. Oh well.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, it is tricky, right? Because the stacks matter, but also like in college, like there's 2 tight ends that I think will be available that I would have higher than Ferguson. And one of them's we can talk about them in a little bit, but
you're going to hold off on naming the names.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we can talk about them when they go.
The hard thing about streaming is we want to give the best information possible, but also we're trying to draft a good team, and people are probably watching. Who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah.
NFL, that's definitely the case. Like you talk about a player, like they get sniped. That's just how it goes in NFL best ball. Maybe not as many, and maybe people aren't watching the stream for college football. Not looking for me at least.
Yeah. We got. I've done I think 5 or 6 on my own on fantasy points this week. Man, okay. snipe.
Peyton like, Thorne. Whatever. That was one of the names you mentioned, right? Peyton Thorne.
Yeah.
He goes. Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see after we pick, maybe we can look at that guy's draft and just see, did he have 2 week 12 bye? Like, why did he pick Peyton Thorne? Should not have gone that early. Just on, I mean, he's going to be a guy that averages like 20 fantasy points per week.
Okay.
Which is not enough in college. So,
I mean, we could go still here.
Yeah, let's do Nate Noel.
Now this is right around ADP. We're getting your 58th ranked player at pick 167.
Yeah.
Feels like a good pick.
Oh yeah.
Now we could be done at running back probably.
Yeah, I think we can be done at running back. Come back and look at wide receivers.
Here's ADP.
So there's a couple. So we're up here in a minute, right? Okay.
Yep.
Man, I say Cade Klubnik is a guy at this range. If he's still there, I think he's our QB right there at the top.
Yep.
I say we go him. He's got a really good offensive coordinator. Lincoln Riley's brother, Garrett. This is an offensive coordinator.
Do you know the bye week off the top of your head?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. I looked at it earlier. Week 13, they play the Citadel. So that correlates with Dylan Gabriel having that week 13 bye. And then he's got 3 and 9 after that. So
is playing the Citadel, do you see that as a plus matchup? Are you at all concerned about like sitting, anything like that?
Yeah, what I think typically what we see is these guys, it's going to limit their ceiling a little bit, maybe. But you still kind of get the floor on those players. And again,
Okay.
if I was depending on him to be our guy, then maybe not. But
Okay.
with Jackson Arnold and Cam Ward, I think we're pretty set, kind of in that range.
Okay.
So Andy plays Pittsburgh week 12, and Pittsburgh traditionally has a good pass rush, but their secondary is not usually great. So
it could be a good spot there. Okay.
yeah.
Nice. And we have not talked at all about game stacking any of these players. Do you have any week 14 matchups in mind for this team? Any I don't know if you have the week 14 stuff memorized.
Yeah, I'm still getting familiar with it.
Okay.
On that, not in particular. Yeah,
Let's take a look. So we have Oregon, Oklahoma, Miami, Florida, and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at the week 14 real quick.
Yeah. So
Clemson is South Carolina playing the Cox.
Yep.
Oregon playing Washington. Oklahoma playing LSU, and then what was the last one? Miami, Florida playing Syracuse. So we can kind of keep those in mind, maybe.
Yeah.
If there's for breaking ties, Syracuse.
So Oklahoma, LSU, and Washington, Oregon. Those are two games that last year, right, would have been in the 70s as far as their over under. I mean, these are high scoring games, but Washington doesn't have a lot of stacking options. This year, this late, at least. I mean, they have pretty solidified 1-2. But LSU, on the other hand, has some great stacking options in this range. So you have, I don't even know if he's left yet, but Chris Hilton is a guy that we could probably get in this range who should be a starting wide receiver for LSU. There's a lot of
he went at 171.
Oh, there you go. So Xavier Thomas is another one that's vying for a starting slot. We could look at him, and then CJ Daniels probably he's got a lot of volatility in where he falls. I've seen him fall in this range, but he's also gone as far high as like round 8 or 7.
Okay.
PSU fan I think was hyping him up in a live stream I saw, so he might have already grabbed him a while ago. So, but those are ones.
Yeah.
And
it's a relatively small this tournament is relatively small, like relative to like Best Ball Mania, where it's like, oh, you're playing against 700,000 other teams, and even in the final it's 500. Here it's like for rounds 1, 2, and 3, top 2 advance. So it's top 2 out of 12, I think, top 2 out of 10 and 8 for the other round. So like,
yeah, that's a good point.
So like the game stacking, maybe you just need to like take the best available more often rather than full game stacking. I think the final is like 96, so it is a little bit more of a tournament in week 14, but maybe not quite as big of a deal to game stack as it is in NFL, like Best Ball Mania.
Yeah. I do think it is so tough, right? When you have 68 teams versus 32.
Yeah.
And I think we're just still figuring out, and maybe even after this year, right? Of like going like, all right, these are the ones that, I mean, we're basing things on theory right now.
Yep. And then, I mean, after 1 year, it's like, we're basing things on such a small sample size. Like this happened this year. Like we saw like, in NFL, like the first season of Best Ball Mania, it was a hyper fragile running back team that won, and we've kind of since gone away from. I mean, not entirely. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So this is your ranking.
Yeah. So let's do Ben Brahmer here. He's a top tight end on the board, and then we can be good at tight end. He's a guy that's got some NFL upside. In an offense, Charlie Kohler. I'm sure you know that name from the NFL, but he he's a huge guy at Iowa State, and they like to feature their tight end. And Brahmer's got wide receiver converted to tight end type build. So, and now we're set at well, oh, you know what? I didn't check. I should have been checking on bye weeks. There's 3-9. On and we got Jolie
and Brahmer.
So NC State. Oh. All right, we do have an overlapping bye week. That was a miss on my part.
Is it 3? I mean, neither of them in the playoffs. So is it just 1?
It's a 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
what do you think? You want to go with another? So this is ADP.
Yeah. I say maybe we just go Aiden Childs here. He was the QB there.
QB.
Yeah, right there. Let's just do that. And let's finish out. We just won't do Vandegrift. Vandegrift is not a good QB. He's just simply a play. But Aiden Childs and Klubnik, these are all 5 starters that are going to be the guys in their team. Aiden Childs is a guy that could cruise up boards for the NFL draft. And he plays Illinois on week 12. So that's a good matchup for him. And then he's got Purdue the week after that in week 13. So we should be fine there.
So I guess, how much do tight ends score enough in college football fantasy that we need to take another tight end to cover that week 9 bye? I typically do for NFL, but like there, some of the research that has been done on bye weeks is like, yeah, I mean, it helps. Like, it's going to lower your advance rate slightly to not have all of your bye weeks covered, but like not the biggest thing for a tight end, like different from like quarterback, obviously,
right,
where it's like you're giving up 25 points in projection,
right,
or something like that in college football. At tight end, do they score enough that like you feel like we need to cover that bye week, or are you okay just accepting the 0 for 1 week? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think I might just accept the 0 because it's, I think the range of our guys is 7 to 12 fantasy points per game. I mean, we didn't get these elite, tight end options.
Right.
We got solid ones, and they'll be 7 to 12. They'll be safe. But we didn't go for like this like crazy ceiling here. So I think it's pretty safe if we were to fade it, if we liked the other options here at the end, at different positions.
Don't force it, but if we like the value on one of the tight ends who covers it, we could take them.
Yeah, and I think here at the end, like we're either going best available. Like if there's a running back that's like just crazy value, then we take them. But like we're looking at shoot for the moon wide receivers.
Yeah,
potentially in this range. Because how many wide receivers do we have? We have 4.
We're at 5, 6, 4, 2.
Yeah.
Which coming from NFL best ball, it's like, damn, only 4 receivers this late doesn't feel great from an NFL standpoint, but it's obviously a different landscape here.
Yeah. And there's so let's look at maybe let's go to ADP on some of these wide receivers.
All right, so here's wide receivers by ADP.
So maybe let's put in Ja'Cory Brooks into the queue. Because again, we're gonna go for he's right there. Go for the fences here a little bit. So let's see if he's available when we pick. Xavier Thomas is another one that you could put in there. And then let's look. Maybe if you could type in Deshaun Stribling.
Okay.
So click on him, and then let's look at Micah Hudson. And then one more here, TJ Moore. So Moore. I think TJ Moore will pop up there at the top. Yep. So we can talk about these guys too. I don't know when we're drafting here, but
yeah. So we're 3 picks away right now.
Okay.
Some of those guys, I'll say, are pretty low in the fantasy points ranks.
Yeah.
So that is a disagreement between yourself and the other ranker.
Yeah. I mean, some of this is like, we're drafting in this format. So, okay. So some of this is some of these ranks were built off of like a 30 round rankings. So TJ Moore and Ja'Cory Brooks, Micah Hudson, these are all guys that would go much later. You could get later value for them. I think again, we'll adjust here. We put them out really quickly, but we'll adjust here. And these are all guys that are smash plays potentially that you want to have. So let's go with maybe Deshaun. Let's go TJ Moore here. We can talk about it. We stack him with Cade Klubnik. So this is a incoming 5-star wide receiver from Clemson. And if there's anything that Clemson has struggled with over the last 3 or 4 years, it's outside wide receivers. They just haven't gotten it right. And this kid went into the are you familiar with any incoming wide receivers this year? Jeremiah Smith, is that Nate?
I don't know. You mean incoming to college football? No, I'm not. I'm not familiar with that. Yeah.
So there's a kid coming in this year, Jeremiah Smith, that's like unbelievable. Like supposed to be the next kind of generational type talent, is at Ohio State.
Hmm.
Well, TJ Moore outperformed him in the Army All-American game. Had like 12 catches for 165 yards and a couple
Wow.
touchdowns.
Okay.
I mean, and he's 6'3", 210. I mean, he's ready to play in college, but runs good routes at his size. So he's a guy that I could see coming in there at Clemson, and really by the end of the season making a big difference on that squad.
Nice. So yeah,
Um,
seems high
yeah,
upside.
yeah.
Do you want to go with one of these receivers? Is there a
I
tight
would
end you like?
go Deshaun Stribling.
Okay.
Yeah, go him. And so he's another guy that, again, as I've been doing these streams this week and talking to different people, this is a guy that he'll be moving up our rankings quite a bit at fantasy points. But he, Mike Gundy, the head coach at Oklahoma State, he said that he was an NFL talent. And so, but he got injured last year pretty early on. He was a starter, got injured, and he had some other guys go and just take off with the job on the outside. But outside wide receivers are typically the ones that score points in the Oklahoma State offense. Rashad Owens is the one that goes early right now because he's the guy that went off later in the year last year. But he was like the third, fourth string tight end wide receiver last year.
Okay.
And so Deshaun Stribling was a starter and then got injured. So he's got some value here later in the draft. I'm not saying that he's going to necessarily be the guy right away, but
Is he coming in with an injury coming into the season?
No, he'll be pretty healthy coming into the season.
Nice. So we've got one pick left. But before we finish the stream, so it sounds like you said you've done several stream drafts for Fantasy Points this week. Are you doing all of your streams typically on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel?
Yeah, most of our streams are on that YouTube channel. I'm doing one tonight at
nice
9 p.m. Eastern, kind of running the same thing that we're doing here.
Nice. Yeah. So if you are looking for more college football content, go check out that Fantasy Points channel. Are you doing a solo stream there? Or
it'll be me and one of my co-hosts, Zach.
Okay.
He does all our projections, and Zach is one of the best in the game at projections. So we're excited to have him on tonight.
Nice. That'll be a good stream. So if you're looking for some college football content, go check out Josh tonight there. Of course, you can find Josh on Twitter at CFF guys. Are you do you do threads? Do you put out info on Twitter, anything like that for people who are looking for that?
Yeah, I'll do some threads, particularly on players, right? And some Devi, some CFF, kind of dabble in a lot of different threads in that arena, putting out some like top rankings, things like that.
What was it? Devi, did you say?
Yeah, so like just like the Devi format, which is like you draft college players, but they sit on your bench until they get to the
developmental.
NFL
Developmental. Okay.
Yeah, developmental. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So go check out Josh at CFF guys on Twitter or X if you prefer. Putting out some useful info there. Of course, you can find Josh in the Fantasy Points Discord as well once you sign up for Fantasy Points. So a lot of good place to find Josh. Of course, the YouTube channel is free. You can find, I assume those are all, none of that is behind a paywall.
Nope. Yeah, all free.
Nice. Go subscribe there if you haven't. I'll also be doing the Outside the Box show with Scott Barrett on Saturdays on the Fantasy Points channel. At least that is the plan as far as I know. We're going to be doing that on the Fantasy Points channel. So yeah, make sure you subscribe there. I'll throw the link there into the description of this video. I don't think I have it on there yet. But all useful stuff. We still have Micah Hudson here if we want him. We're at 5.662 right now, so we could think about throwing on another tight end.
Yeah. And we can do that. I think I don't even know who Miami plays in week 9. I'm a horrible fan, but but I think that could be Elijah Arroyo is there at the top.
Ranked 152.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that.
All right, that'll be our final pick of the draft, Elijah Arroyo. We'll wait for Slick Willie to make his pick, and then we'll go over our team.
It's fun getting the draft off out of the 2 slot. That again, I haven't had much experience doing that.
It's funny drafting college football versus NFL because I draft NFL teams and I'm like, I love this team or I hate this team. This draft didn't go well, whatever. Whereas this, I'm just like, I have no idea. I'm sure it's good because you helped me draft it, but I like just looking at it, I'm like, I don't know if this is what I want my team to look like.
Yeah.
Instinctively, I don't know anything. But here's the team we end up with. So it's a 5-6-6-3 build. At quarterback, we have Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, Cam Ward, Cabe Klubnik, and Aiden Childs.
Yeah. Childs. Yep.
Childs. Running back, we have Nicholas Singleton, Caleb Jackson, Jaden Blue, Montrell Johnson Jr., Jordan Waters, Nate Noel. Wide receiver, Trey Harris, Deion Burks, Kyle Williams, Samuel Brown, TJ Moore, Deshaun Stribling, and at tight end, Justin Jolie, Benjamin Brommer, and Elijah Arroyo. How do you feel about the team?
Yeah, I think overall I really like it. I mean, I think going Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, Cam Ward early, I mean, it solidifies that we're going to have a QB, at least 2 QBs scoring 25 fantasy points per week, which is always nice to have that high ceiling, right?
Yeah.
At the position that scores the most points. And then, at running back, we have 5 guys there that are, 4 or 5 that are definitely going to be the RB1s, clear RB1s in their backfield, which is nice. And then 2 that are really explode. We have Jadon Blue that could explode any week. Nick Singleton is a guy that could absolutely explode at Penn State. So I like that mixture of high upside and high floor.
Nice.
I think when you get that, that's nice. And then at wide receiver, I think that's the position where we went Trey Harris and Deion Burks early, Kyle Williams early, and then we took some shots later on. And I think with this 2 wide receiver format, half PPR, like that's tend to be what I've done is like, try to get those guys early that I know will fill those 2 slots and then just take some shots later on guys that could really boom later on. So, and then tight end, I think we're solid.
Superflex, I for NFL, yeah, it's always a struggle, like because it's so different. The Superflex where you only need 2 wide receivers as opposed to 3 in typical. So you have to like really kind of reformat like how do you think about wide receivers? You're usually drafting so many, but like when you only need to fill 2 spots, potentially 3 with the flex, we can do that with a running back too. It is it's a different game. So yeah, maybe we're okay with just 6 when we're only filling those 2 spots.
Yeah.
Really, really fun to have you on here, Josh. Again, I know nothing about college football, so really helpful to have you on with your rankings, your helpful sheet for the buys, the playoff schedule, all that. Obviously, I could not draft a team without your help, so really appreciate you coming on, giving me some advice, helping me draft the team. I'll be able to now going forward just use the info that you have at Fantasy Points to help me draft my teams. Are you going to max this contest?
I think we'll have to see. I mean, I think still learning the landscape of even underdog best ball. So we're just learning it right now, and so we'll figure out if we do that. See how long it stays open. I mean, it's at 51% fill, so we'll see.
Cool. Well, again, thanks a lot for coming on, Josh. Do you have anything else that you need to plug? Anything else you have going on this week that you want people to know about?
Yeah, no, you can check out our best ball rankings. We have those out for free, in an article format, and then we have them behind the paywall, with CSV and type stuff like that. So you guys want to check that out and get into this space, more the merrier in the college football space. So plenty of room.
Yeah, go check it out. You can do the all-in package. You can do just the college football package, all of it, 15% off, promo code Orfield24 if you want to get into that. Josh will be streaming college football tonight at 9 Eastern. I will also be streaming NFL. Going to do a Best Ball Mania stream tonight. I'm realizing, Josh, I'm trying to stream 150 Best Ball Mania drafts. I have 68 left to go. I was trying to look at the math of like how many I need to do per week. I really need to up my game, especially with 2 vacations. I'm going to be out all of next week, and then I have another vacation in August. So I'm going to be streaming like a madman for the
amazing
next month or so.
Whenever
I am around. More
2 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be rough. So yeah, starting tonight, I will be on with Andrew. It's Draft 32 Teams on Twitter, GPNGC or something like that on Underdog. I'll be drafting with him a couple tonight as well. So check out our streams. You've got NFL, college football. It's all there. Thank you. Thanks again, Josh. Thank you all for hanging out, watching the stream. And if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. All that helps out quite a bit. Thanks, guys. See you later.